This live stream tonight is being sponsored by the Mordecai Mission as well as Augusta Precious Metals. If you want to learn about how you can incorporate gold and silver and other precious metals into your retirement portfolio, feel free to go to the biblicalconservative.com/gold. You can go to the link in the description. It will be on this video afterwards, or you can go to the website, the address right there.
I'm the congressman that represents Kilmar. I came all the way down from the United States after we contacted their ambassador, after we'd made formal requests to our ambassador to the El Salvadoran government. And we came here to visit him today. And now they're telling us we got to go all the way back to El Salvador, to San Salvador to get a permit. That's ridiculous. We ought to have a chance to come in and visit. They knew we were coming. They knew why we were coming. And they know we have the right to do this. So they need to just cut the crap. Let us get in there and have a chance to see him and talk with him. We got his lawyer here. We got somebody from the unions here to talk with him. Let us in. Stop playing games. Let us have a chance to talk with him.
The illegal aliens that were let in here by the millions, this was supposed to be the new voting bloc to keep the Democratic Party in power. If you remember in Joe Biden's president-elect conference with him, Kamala Harris, and so-called various black leaders got together on the Zoom call, what was his exact words, verbatim? Y'all better get ready to work with the Latinos because they're going to be the largest minority in America. So you see right there, all these illegals were plants to be a new voting bloc. See, the sad irony is the Democrats know they have the black vote in their pocket. And when you heard all this talk about voting rights, they weren't talking about black people. They were talking about these illegals. And black people need to stop being the willful disciples of the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party doesn't care about them. You see how this congressman went all the way to El Salvador to plead the case of one man who is not even a United States citizen. So that tells you all you need to know about the Democratic Party. They want to maintain their voting bloc of illegals, and they want to block everything that Trump is trying to do to get them out of here, because they figure if they can block deportations, mass deportations during the 4 years that Trump is in office, then they feel they'll have a chance again to stay in power through the illegal migrant vote, even though these illegal aliens cannot vote legally.
I think Pastor Green has identified one of the components of the rationale for why the Democrat Party in particular is fighting for the rights of illegal immigrants. But there's a larger understanding, or larger picture, I think, that needs to be understood here. That the Democrat Party is on a mission, and this mission is to undermine our nation and to expose it to a transformation. The transformation that they seek is that they want this country to be flipped into a socialistic paradigm. And part of the theory of making that happen is to create chaos. Out of chaos comes a new world order. I liken this to what is called the Hegelian dialectic. Hegelian dialectic seeks to disrupt what is and to replace it with something different. And it's a process. It takes what is theses, what is, and introduce antitheses, what it is not. And then through the process of synthesis, they come up with a compromise. And they compromise what is into something different, bringing these illegals in and giving them the same rights as indigenous citizens is the recipe for creating transformation or the country into a socialistic paradigm. So there's an ideological motivation, I believe, behind this. And so the Hegelian dialectic is one of those means by which to do that. If you remember, in Frankfurt School in 1929, Antonio Gramsci and sociologists of that time constructed what they called critical theory. Critical theory. Critical theory is a theory that was developed for the purpose of criticizing the system, for the purpose of transitioning the system into something different than it was. One of the definitions of as I understand critical race theory is a social theory oriented towards criticizing and changing society as a whole. Critical theory emerged out of the Marxist tradition and out of what is called or developed by that school in Frankfurt, Germany, as cultural Marxism. And we're witnessing the implementation and the infiltration of cultural Marxism into our culture. And they're having some measure of success. And the measure of success is because they have, within strategic positions within our government, elected officials who were put there by the voting population who was uninformed, let me put it that way. And they have been bamboozled into believing that the Democrat Party has their best interest in mind. One of the mantras of the Democrat Party is that we're for the little guy. And little guy in this case means the poor and disenfranchised in the culture, and primarily the black community. And they have manipulated the community to get them to vote for candidates who do not have the best interest of our nation, of the community, and of the founding principles that undergird this nation at all. Those elected officials come into office as socialists, and they legislate, and they disrupt, and they're pushing an agenda that is antithetical to the founding principles that undergird this nation and made it one of the greatest nations on the planet Earth. I think there's a larger picture going on here. Yes, they're manipulating to maintain power, but they're wanting to maintain power for what purpose? To undermine what is and to transform this country into something other than what it is.
If I was to use couple of words, I think it's called the Stockholm Syndrome. We fell in love with our persecutors, and those who have particularly in the early 1900s, late 1800s, the early 1900s, with Jim Crow, the same party that hung us, the same party that killed us, the same party that enslaved us. Now we have fallen in love because they gave us a little government cheese and some eggs. And as a result, they have developed a dependent class. That's why they need illegals. African Americans are no longer the dominant minority group. The Hispanic community, I believe, is predominantly minority group today, and they want to do to them what they did to us, make us dependent upon them so that we will vote for them. And the reason why they are so prone to illegal immigration is because it's about power over people. As my brother Green said, they want to stay in power. And illegal immigration was what they believe that would accomplish that for them. And secondly, I don't think we as African Americans demand much from our leaders. We don't demand them to fight for us. We put them in power and trust that they're going to do what they say they're going to do until they get to DC and things doesn't change. I'm offended that any congressman would go outside of the country to fight for somebody who's not an American citizen. I just read today where 1.4 million illegals was on Social Security. And when you look at the illegals getting all this money, they get free hotels in Manhattan. Now, I've stayed in Manhattan. It ain't cheap in Manhattan. Ain't no Motel 6 in Manhattan. Ain't no Crystal in Manhattan. You got to have some money to stay in Manhattan. It's nice up there in Manhattan. And yet they get these hotels, $360 a night or more, 3 hot meals a day. They move some of the black kids out of schools and put them in other schools, sometimes gymnasiums, and put the illegals in there. And I'm saying to myself, where are our representatives? Where are they? Uh, uh, you know, if the Democratic Party was fighting for the white man, black people would be raising all kind of sand. But again, as you stated, the Cloward Piven rule, that's in effect. As Pastor Broden said, the Marxist philosophy is in effect because Marxism promises, but it never delivers what it promises. But the main thing, in my opinion, brethren, what we're witnessing is an anti-God paradigm that's being perpetrated upon America. Remember something, and I tell my congregation, and I still believe this: Marxism and communism cannot take root where there are vibrant churches. Everything they're doing in this culture is aimed at the church. It started with the COVID stuff. They kept the liquor stores open. They kept the uh, grocery stores open, but they want to shut down the church. I'm thinking, does not COVID go to the grocery store? Does COVID not go to the pharmacy? You know, it only goes to the church. I'm thinking, why is this? Because I think it was a test case. I really do. I think it was a test case to see how far and how much Americans are willing to give up their rights, okay, for this pandemic. Now, remember something, brethren, is this: where there's an expansion of government, there is depletion of rights, okay? And government has gone wild. They think they can do anything. And I'm horrified that any politician, particularly my African American politicians, will go down to El Salvador and fight for a criminal. And we got black veterans can't find homes. Some of them need hospitalization. And I'm thinking, what is wrong with this picture? Why aren't we rising up and saying we need to demand more from those who look like us? Okay? We can't no longer say, I'm going to vote for you because you black. I tell people, you might be my color, but you're not necessarily my kind. Okay? And I'm not voting for anybody that's going to have an anti-God philosophy and put stuff in this culture because it's going to translate to the society. Remember something, and I'm going to let you talk. Morality affects economics. So it's not by accident that they're waging a war against the family through all this immorality stuff, this transgenderism, this LGBTQ, all this kind of stuff. If people say, well, they deserve rights. Everybody in America got rights called civil rights. What they want is special rights. And they want to make me as a pastor, eventually, try to make me as a pastor embrace something that they know I can't embrace. And if I don't embrace it, they're going to make laws try to shut us down because this Marxist socialist philosophy cannot work where there are vibrant churches. So they need churches to give up God, okay, and go with the culture. So you got the culture over God rather than God over culture. That's what I think.
People need to understand that what's going on is an invasion, a purposeful invasion that's been perpetrated by our own government. And unfortunately, many of our citizens do not have the first idea of their civic responsibilities. They don't understand their rights or their responsibilities of being a citizen. They don't even understand the three branches of our federal government system or our local government system. So when you can get people to tug on the heartstrings of folks and they start talking about, well, gee, they just want a better life for their family, and this, that, and the other. Of course they do. I do too. I want a better life for my family. But since people want to get down to the minutia, what I say is this: okay, how many of you are willing to open up your door and let some family that you do not know come live in your house? That you're going to just take those folks in and with your wife and your children, and you're just going to bring them in your house without any knowledge of their background, with any knowledge of their, responsibilities, or if they're criminals or whatever. And see, we get this weird liberal mindset that if it doesn't affect me personally, then I'm okay. But I've never heard one person accept that proposition that they will let somebody in the house. It's just like this idea that I'm supposed to be responsive to any black person, and I don't know a soul in the world that if some black person is going to knock on your door at 2 o'clock in the morning and say, "Hey, let me in because I'm black," you're going to let them in. It doesn't work that way. I mean, we have a responsibility. Number one, as human beings. Number two, as men, to take care of our family. And we have a responsibility to our government. If we allow people to come in here and just suck up all our natural resources, or our tax money, our children aren't getting educated in this lousy, secularized education system in the public schools as it is. And I think this is on purpose, but that's, we can talk about that another day. But nevertheless, you bring in a bunch of illegals, and they've created laws where we have to educate those people. So you put them on top of our children who aren't learning anything other than about drag queen story hour and how to experiment with their bodies when they don't even know what their bodies can do. It's just a recipe for disaster. And I think all three of the pastors pretty much hit it in where it needs to be hit when we're talking about a socialist Marxist ideology that's designed to corrupt and destroy our present governmental system. These people want to get rid of the Constitution, but they can't get rid of it outwardly, so they want to get rid of it inwardly, and they will destroy it and they will corrupt it, and they're making the thing just fall apart. So yeah, people want to talk about these people want to take care of their families. I would say, okay, tell their governments to do their job. That's why we have countries. If we didn't have countries, then we wouldn't, then you can have, I guess they want this one world leader to lead everybody. No, send these folks home. And as far as this Joker and all these Democrats, unfortunately, they love to go out of the country and take care of somebody that doesn't even belong here. What blows my mind more than them are their so-called constituents that tolerate that nonsense and still vote for these people while they're the ones suffering.
When you talk about people in church who believe this is some benevolent adventure that they can go on to allow people to just flood the gates and come in any kind of a way, I don't think they have a good biblical understanding of who and what and how God operates. He's a God of decency and he's a God of order. A lot of times I like to quote that scripture from Leviticus 19:34 that says, "But the stranger that dwelleth with you shall be unto you as one born among you, and thou shalt love him as thyself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God." They forget that one part there where it says, "He shall be unto you as one born among you." In other words, he is going to assimilate. He's going to obey your laws. He's going to respect your order. When heaven has gates, surely our nation should have gates. I mean, there's order and there's decency in everything that God does. And I think a lot of people, when they go on that benevolent adventure, which I think is kind of ignorant in some regards because they don't understand the Bible fully, they think that they can take the mandates that God gave us as individuals. And Jesus said, "Love your neighbor as yourself." That was an individual mandate. He did not give that mandate to the government. The government has a different role. If you look in the New Testament, he says that the authorities don't bear the sword in vain. His roles are different than what our roles are. He used to execute justice. He used to execute judgment, to bring order, to punish evildoers, those that break the law, such as entering our country illegally. And I think they sorely mistake what your individual responsibility as a Christian is for what the government's responsibility is. If the government doesn't operate the way it should, then we as Christians, we can't operate the way we should. That's why the Bible mandates us to pray for those in authority who may live a quiet and peaceful life. Well, when they operate the way that these bleeding heart liberals want to operate, it creates chaos. There's disorder. and we can't operate the way we want to. Because when there's no law, there's no protection for Christians, there's no protection for anybody. It benefits everybody when we decide to obey the natural laws that God, the Creator, put here on earth. And I think what we see the Democrat Party doing is once again idolizing their own desires and trying to trump God's way for power. And I think a lot of this goes back to these globalists also. We are the last large, strong, independent nation that exercises sovereignty, through and through. I mean, throughout our history, we declared ourselves sovereign. Nobody's going to tell us what to do. And I think we are a threat to their globalist agenda. And a lot of times what they like to do is they like to invite people from all over the world to come here, across our borders. And these people get better treatment than a lot of American citizens do. We have Army vets sleeping on the streets that need help financially, mentally, spiritually. They're being neglected. You got families at home that are jobless, that need help, that are American citizens. They get neglected, and these people that come over illegally get preferential treatment. Well, that's demoralizing. That's really demoralizing. And what that does for some is, to those that know right, it's demoralizing, but to those who are ignorant, it's energizing. So you got one side that's demoralized and one side that's energized because they think they're doing something benevolent. So I think it's an exercise in futility. It's definitely demonstrated as being purposeful. They know what they're doing, and I think it's very strategic. And a lot of it, as mentioned before, is our own undoing. We decide to vote these people in. We decide to watch these things happen. And as long as we do that, I mean, we're kind of, I don't want to say we're getting what we asked for, but we got to stop being these people with eyes wide shut. We have to wake up and see it for what it is. This isn't benevolence. A lot of these people that are coming here, especially across the southern border, I believe is 1 out of 3 or 2 out of 3 women are being raped. A lot of these children are being sex trafficked. If you want to be benevolent, get this thing straightened out. People are being hurt. People are being lost. There's hundreds of thousands of children. We don't know where they are because of the system being the way it is. If you really care, you do this thing decent and in order the way God would do it.